well. You're listening to Tech Fest Talks, a podcast for students by students, and we are girls from Meldrum Academy taking part in the Girls into Energy scheme. Today's guest, Antony Jinman, we're about to take off to Antarctica for the Antarctic Quest 21. Hello, Antony. How are you today?
Good afternoon. Yeah, hi. Very well. We're literally just 2 days until departing, so you can imagine it's a pretty busy time and quite exciting as well. So, so yeah, it's a pleasure to speak to you today.
Hi, I'm Heidi. How did you get to go on this trip?
So this is expedition. Oh, crikey! Probably around. I've done about 20 odd now expeditions to both the Arctic and Antarctica. So I was the 12th Briton to ski to the geographic North Pole and ski solo to the geographic South Pole. I know the expedition leader Paul Hart for many years now, and a couple of years ago when he came up with the idea of this expedition, he asked if I would come on board as his deputy leader. So I, gladly accepted the opportunity to go down on this project. So yeah, that's how I got involved. Yeah.
What made you want to go on this trip?
That's a very, very good question. So I'm lucky enough that over the past, well, all of those expeditions that I've done previously have been over about nearly 15 years of traveling in the polar regions, and I guess I've seen and spoken with people who are either researchers or indigenous people that live in the Arctic, and I've heard firsthand and seen firsthand just how the polar regions are being affected by us. So Paul's expedition to the peninsula of Antarctica to cross over the mountain range and to conduct climate change research, as well as looking into microplastic contamination in the snow of Antarctica, I think is something that I'm very interested in, very passionate about. So if we can use our expertise to help bring back samples and research for the scientists at the universities that we're working in collaboration with, then that's a great, I suppose, legacy to the project and what we're looking to achieve. So that's my key area of interest. It's certainly around the microplastic snow contamination as well. I think that's a really interesting area.
Hi, I'm Kirsten. How long have you been planning this trip?
So that is a very good question as well. This has been in the pipeline for just over 2 years, and if we were originally looking to go this time last year, but of course the pandemic and the change in travel, the travel restrictions meant that we couldn't go last year. So it's been a long time in the planning, and very much looking forward to finally getting underway.
Hi, I'm Emily. What training have you completed to be able to successfully go on this trip?
That's a good question as well. Training wise, yeah, we're all competent mountaineers, and I suppose expedition people in our own right. So it's a lot of people have professional guide qualifications as well. So I guess if you were to look at the adventure tourism industry, so I'm a qualified international mountain leader and polar tourism guide as well. So the training that's involved for both of those qualifications takes actually quite a few years to build up experience of leading groups in mountainous environments, both here in the UK and overseas, as well as for the polar guides qualification. Then it's really looking at presentation skills, first aid skills, boat driving skills, as well as camping and group leadership. So yeah, lots of different routes and experience within the team.
Mm-hmm. And what are the main things you are researching?
So there's a couple of elements to the expedition. The microplastic contamination, snow contamination is an interesting one, where we'll be collecting snow samples through various different depths of snow, and those will be then put into little containers and brought back to us for the university to analyse in the laboratories. We'll also be looking for heavy metal contamination in that snow as well. So all of this is both the microplastics and the heavy metals are given off through like business and industry in the more Western world. And then, of course, with prevailing winds, it's could potentially be going down to Antarctica and coming back down to Earth or to Antarctica in snow. So that's going to be really interesting. We're also doing a little bit of citizen science for NASA, where we're using, there's an app called Globe Observer, so we can actually, as satellites are going over our location, we'll be able to photograph the cloud cover, and so that's used in what's called like ground truthing to identify and help identify what we're seeing from the ground compared to what satellites are seeing from orbit. So that's a really interesting piece of work as well, piece of research. And I get one other one that's quite interesting is we're establishing and actually putting in a GPS transmitter, and the GPS transmitter is looking at how the Earth's crust is rebalancing as the snow and the ice melts. So that snow and ice is actually puts a lot of pressure, a lot of force on the Earth's crust, and as that disappears, and that force is actually being released. So scientists are interested to see if the Earth's crust is actually in that part of Antarctica is actually rising in height, and so that would give an indication just how quickly the ice is melting in this part of Antarctica, which again is really, really interesting.
Hi, my name's Amber. How will the research help with climate change?
Hi Amber. Good question. Some of those projects that I was just talking about there, I guess climate change specifically, I think the transmitter is probably a really interesting project for the researchers at the university to, it all feeds into their ongoing work. So I'd say that one is probably the most specific to climate change research. And there's probably a couple of others as well. We at Foyne Points, which is our furthest distance, there's actually a remote weather and monitoring station, and we're going in there to retrieve the information that's stored on that station, as well as I believe put in some new batteries and bring it back to life again. So again, that's some more an important role to help with that piece of research as well.
What type of equipment do you need to take on the trip in order to do the research?
So I guess for the expedition gear itself, we're taking a lot of so we're traveling on skis and pulling our equipment in sledges behind us. And the reason for that is we're going to be carrying a lot of expedition gear, probably in the region of about 120 kilograms per person. And that's just too heavy to carry in rucksacks. So that's why we use sledges, so we can carry more equipment and pull more equipment. We will be operating in a very cold environment, so tents, stoves, everything we need to basically be self-sufficient for 5 weeks on the ice, 5-6 weeks. We are also in a mountainous, heavily glaciated environment, so the risk of falling into crevasses, which are covered by snow, is quite high. So we always travel in what's called a rope team, where we're connected together in a rope, and we carry a lot of mountaineering equipment to help if we needed to rescue ourselves out of a difficult situation or overcome some challenging terrain. In terms of the science equipment, that is a very good question. That should go to one of our science members on the team. But I believe that we're carrying the actual transceiver, the GPS transceiver, and equipment to install the transmitter, as well as for the snow contamination. We'll be taking out an ice corer, so we can core down into the snow to get samples, which will go into like test tubes and beakers. And for the citizen science observation work, then all we need for that actually is just our iPhones or our iPad to do the observations using the app. So a wide range of different technology and equipment.
What are you going to do with the information you find?
We will publish our own expedition report at the end of the expedition, which would be submitted to the Royal Geographic Society. In addition to that, the universities that we were working in partnership with, we hope that the information that we gather will help in the research and the publications of their own research papers. So it will be used in a number of different ways.
What types of food will you eat, and how many calories will you take in?
So that I can help you with. So I'm in charge of the the meal plan. So typically we're burning around 6,000 calories a day. However, everybody's body is slightly different on the trip, and what I mean by that is Rickard, for instance, is about 6.5 foot tall. Yeah, and the smallest member of the team is probably Paul Hart, our expedition leader. Sorry, Paul, I know. I'm slightly taller, a couple of inches, but about 5'6". So the height difference means that everyone's body is slightly different in terms of how many calories that we need to burn in order to operate. And we've been working with a company called Better You about taking vitamin supplements on the expedition, and how that will have an impact with our performance. But in terms of food directly, around 6,000 calories a day. Typical day will start off with a hot breakfast, which is dehydrated kind of porridge or something similar. Then throughout the course of the day, we have snacks. So we have like nuts and dried meat, jerky. We have cheese. We have dried fruit, chocolate. For lunch, we'll actually have a light meal. So it's like a heavy soup, dehydrated soup. And then for the evening meal, we'll have another dehydrated meal. So the meals like curries, chilies, bolognese, lasagna, pasta, all sorts of bits and pieces. And there's some really good vegan and vegetarian options as well. So for those members in the team that don't eat meat, so yeah, quite a wide, a diverse kind of meal plan, catering for each individual team member, depending on their dietary requirements.
What clothing will you need to survive the cold, windy weather?
So traveling in this environment is mostly around kind of like the layer, like having a layering system. So what I mean by that is we have kind of a base layer, which is typically merino wool or thermals. Then on top of that, we might have like a mid layer, either a fleecy mid layer or a lightweight fleece or pullover fleece, and trousers. And then we'll have a more heavier fleece or windproof fleece. And then over the top of that, we've actually got ski salopettes, jackets, balaclavas, hats, goggles, gloves, multiple layers of gloves, and then ski boots to finish off with. So it's we're kind of heavily protected against the winds. That's the biggest factor. Is wind chill will really makes a difference.
Hi, I'm Madison. How many miles or kilometers are you likely to cover on the expedition?
So the total mileage, I think, is, off the top of my head, it's about 250 to 300 kilometers. So, which doesn't sound a huge. Well, it is quite a big distance, I guess. It's but we need to travel in good visibility days as well. So, making sure that the weather is good for when we're traveling, so we can see the terrain, because of the crevasse risk to the expedition.
How long will the expedition take?
So depending on the weather, we're going to be dropped off onto the ice mid December, and then picked up again at the end of January. So we're looking at 36 days in total on the peninsula of Antarctica.
What risks do you have to face when you're out researching?
So the biggest risk on this is definitely going to be the crevasse and avalanche risk, as well as the weather, really, weather conditions. So we need to make sure that, for instance, like the tent doesn't blow away, for instance, or we lose gloves and items of kit. So they're the biggest factors. Wildlife down here on Antarctica is not an issue because, like it is in the Arctic you have to worry about polar bears, but of course in Antarctica there are no polar bears. So there's no wildlife to think, to worry about. So it is really crevasses and weather.
Where will you sleep and how will you keep warm enough overnight?
Yep. So every day we'll be obviously changing location and changing campsite. So every night we'll have to pitch our tents and sleep inside the tent. We'll also be cooking inside the tent. So we need to make sure that we don't catch the tent on fire whilst we're cooking, and make sure that the tent is vented so that we don't get any trouble from any of the gases given off from cooking with the liquid fuel. But and we'll be sleeping on a roll mat and thermarest, very similar to I guess kind of going on a wilderness weekend here in the UK. A 4 seasons sleeping bag, and every morning we'll have to pack all of our stuff away, collapse the tent, and put it into our sledges, and then off we go to the next location.
Does everyone have different roles and jobs?
So the approach on this expedition is very much kind of like everybody is involved in the decision-making process, but within that we have a couple of people that are doing specific things. So Alex is our doctor, and she's a cold weather specialist and wilderness doctor, but also works in A&E at Exeter Hospital. So we're all got advanced wilderness first aid qualifications, but she's in charge of as doctor. We also have Richard, who's our comms specialist, and my specific interest is our digital outreach as well, and our school engagement. So we actually have a web platform called lighttobee.org, where schools are able to get the latest updates from the expedition, and they can actually ask questions to all of our team online via that website as well. So if I don't answer all of your questions today, then I'll put the link to the website in our chat. Actually, it's literally lighttobee.org, and you'll be able to see the Antarctic Quest 21 expedition on the homepage there. So you just click on that, sign up to the platform, and you'll be able to post any additional questions in our forum to all of the team, so we can help answer those questions for you.
Thank you very much. That's all our questions today. We hope you have a good time and get lots of research.
Well, it's a pleasure to help answer your questions. I hope that was of interest.